Happy Wednesday night, everyone. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I am your host, Rob Whiteside, and I have the high ground. If you have not, please make sure to subscribe to WDWNT TV, our brand new rebranded channel. Your home for Park Center, Deep in the Plus, Disney Entertainment News Today, Boxed In, and starting tomorrow night, the News Tonight program will be moving right here. So make sure to give us a like. We appreciate it. Subscribe, and I've got a great cast of people here waiting to talk to you about Obi-Wan Kenobi, starting with Desi. How are you?
Hello there.
See, you got to pull it off this time because there was nobody in that square. You're welcome.
Yes.
And Mr. Ron Deanna.
There.
No? No, Ron?
Are you muted?
I muted. Oh, huh?
Ron,
there
thanks.
actually is someone in that square. You just can't see them because you're not ready for it yet.
You know, you're just going to work that joke in every chance you get, aren't you? So we were talking about at the beginning of the month of June, we got together a panel of people and we talked about Obi-Wan Kenobi, the first two episodes that dropped at the end of May, and we were very in-depth in those. So if you have not already watched that, you can go watch our in-depth review of those two episodes, the first two episodes that dropped on the weekend, Memorial Day weekend, I want to say. Yes? And so then we're back because everybody said, hey, let's talk about the entire series, because everybody who is a Star Wars fan has an opinion. One way or another, they have an opinion about this thing, and so we're going to get into that tonight. But even before we before we go any further, Desi is waiting for her praise here because Dawn has given us a $10 super chat because Desi. I could just see you sitting there going, when are you going to talk about me? So, Dawn, wow. Thanks a lot, Dawn. Appreciate it. No, actually, thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate it. Feel free to super chat as much as you want tonight. We would love that. So anyway, we're going to be talking about the series itself, the entire series. If you guys have not been familiar with it, if you go over to Disney Plus, there's a lot of Star Wars to watch. I was sitting here thinking, I would like to take a week off and just watch all of the Star Wars in order, because it's all out of order. Like, that's the weirdness about this, is that when you're watching Disney Plus and you're watching Marvel Cinematic Universe tie-ins, they're all in order. You're watching them as it develops. But Ron, maybe you could tell me about what you think about this. But I mean, is it weird that like Mandalorian's in one era of Star Wars and now we're kind of bouncing back to Obi-Wan, and then when Andor comes out, we're going to be in a different place? Or does that make it more exciting?
I think Star Wars universe is kind of in that area where you need to spread out, and I'd like to move away from this, 30 or now like a 60-year period where everything takes place, and expand more on that, because there is so much more out. So having things even in that, era between prequels to the Empire era to the Civil War to the First Order, they're all different stories, and I like that we're going back and forth between all of them. But I think there's definitely some time issues that these shows kind of miss. I think Obi-Wan is pretty quick to establish where it was by just saying the kids' ages. But like things like Mandalorian or Boba Fett, like you had no idea how long those first 3 or 4 episodes went over a period. And I think that's kind of where I think some of these time jumps are going to be an issue. But there's characters in this I'm hoping show up in Andor. Some of the secondary, I guess they're kind of the beginning of the rebellion characters.
Right.
We saw here with the Path.
And so let me ask you this, Desi, because I know you're a pretty heavy Star Wars fan. Do you think, like, when you talk to people who aren't as big as Star Wars fans, are they confused about all this jumping around, or do you feel like they're making it pretty clear?
No, I haven't talked to anybody who's been confused by the jumping around. I did do an experiment back in like college or something with my boyfriend at the time, where he had never seen a Star Wars movie. So we went through and watched episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he was shocked to find out that Anakin turned into Darth Vader. So I thought that was kind of funny to see his reaction watching it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it would be even more interesting now to try to watch everything in order. So, episode 1, 2, and then the Clone Wars. 3, Solo: A Star Wars Story. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rebels.
Yeah, don't hurt
Then
yourself.
what?
We get
Rogue
it.
One. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
No, there is a lot. That's what I was saying. Is I'd kind of like to sit back and watch the whole thing in order because, I've called on this joke before, but there is an episode of The Big Bang Theory where Sheldon hasn't seen the Clone Wars movie yet, and they want to start watching the Clone Wars TV show, and he says, "I prefer to let George Lucas disappoint me in chronological order." And so with that, I look at this and go, yeah, it would be nice to actually see it in one straight line, because what other franchise does this? I mean, there are franchises that will throw out a prequel, but they're like, this is all over the place. And I remember, again, Tom Hanks in an award show describing like the prequels and saying, okay, these are the first movies, but they came out second, and then, kind of going back and forth about the joke. It's confusing, I think, but again, it could be simple if you're watching it for the first time. Apparently, you experimented on boyfriends in college. We need to delve into that later.
Maybe that's why it didn't work out.
Maybe. I don't know. What kind of long con are you planning on your husband right now? Who knows? But when I look back at this, and I think the same thing, it's one of those questions, especially as a parent, where you go, when I introduce my kids to this, am I going to introduce them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or do I introduce them 4, 5, 6, and then go back to 1, 2, 3?
They were introduced to the Mandalorian first.
No, go ahead and hit that, Ron. What were you going to say?
I'm getting to that point right now. Andy's 3.5, so I think I'm going to start showing her this. She's seen a little bit as I've watched a few things, but I don't think she really understands. Like, I watch Star Trek, she goes, Star Wars. But I think I'm going to do 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6.
Oh, like what do they call that? The machete order?
I've heard hatchet or machete, yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So
because it keeps the Vader reveal and then kind of works as like a flashback.
Yeah, but I mean, again, when you're watching this, you can't start with this. Like with Obi-Wan, you can't start here because there's. I mean, it's necessary to know at least the original trilogy, if not the prequels, because it picks up right after Episode 3. So I mean, and when I'm watching this too, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this as well. When I'm watching this, part of me is like, oh my gosh, who thought that I could watch more Star Wars with Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen and like a continuation of that story? Like, I never thought that was going to be a thing. And at the same time, I'm looking at it as it kind of sometimes, don't hate me for this, sometimes feels like somebody's fan fiction.
Mine.
Oh, yours? Okay. Well, I mean, go ahead, Ron.
You're old enough to remember when the prequels first came out, being at least a young adult at the time, and
don't tiptoe around it, man. I'm old.
Right? Yeah, we're older, but I remember watching when they first announced it. I'm like, the dude from Trainspotting is gonna be Obi-Wan,
right? The dude from Mr. Mom's gonna be Batman? What? That's crazy. Howard Stern's gonna be Doctor Doom? No way. Yeah, anyway.
I don't think I had seen anything Ewan McGregor was in before the prequels came out.
Yeah.
Unless maybe Emma. I think Emma might have come out before then.
Well, there was a thing with Trainspotting and maybe Life Less Ordinary, but that came out around the same time as Episode 1, I think.
Yeah. But I mean, we're bringing back all the big actors from those movies. We're putting ourselves back in that universe. We have the John Williams music. It's so much a continuation of that story. And yet, at the same time, it's sort of a continuation of Dave Filoni's dream to bring to life every character he ever created for animation. Having the Inquisitors in here is, I think, probably, at least at the beginning, one of the coolest things about this series. Do you agree, Desi, or were you a huge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for the shape of the head.
Should they have just squeezed Rupert's head in a little bit to make it thinner?
Give him a little cone head, like what they did in SNL.
Sure.
Because I thought we had seen that species already in Episode 3, and they had kind of the narrower heads. I thought that was the same one. I forget what they're called.
Yeah.
But I heard someone I was watching another review of the show earlier today, and they accidentally called him Rupert Grint as the actor, and I'm like really confused for a second. I'm like
Rupert Friend, Rupert Grant, not Rupert,
I'm like,
Rupert something.
Wait, what?
Yeah, man, can you imagine if Rupert Grint was the Grand Inquisitor? Whew, such a movie this would have been. Man, that would have been great. So. Anyway, as we we watched the first 2 episodes, there was a lot of things that we took away from it that we talked about on those first 2 episodes, and one was where we thought it was going. Desi, we talked about like would Qui-Gon Jinn appear, and was one of the younglings in the first episode going to be somebody else that we saw later, and a lot of those things. And again, if you're watching this and you haven't seen this, hold on, because these are all spoilers from here on out. So, but when we're watching that, looking at it, one of the main theories was one of the younglings the Jedi who came to the village. He seems to have been a very expendable character. We never see him again. We never hear reference of him again. He's just it was a lesson for Obi-Wan. So then Reva was the other thing is that the youngling, because they zero in on her face, and when you go back and look on it, you go, okay, they were pushing this down my throat. I should have known the whole time that Reva was one of the original younglings. Was there anything else that we talked about that you can remember that either did or did not come to fruition after we talked about it, Desi?
Well, I thought that the Grand Inquisitor was dead. And I thought, the Grand Inquisitor we see later is just a different guy of the same species with a taller head. But nope, you guys were all right. I was wrong about that one. He did live, I guess, because that species has 2 stomachs. So he could survive being stabbed right through the middle. Although I guess being stabbed doesn't really do much in Star Wars unless you're Qui-Gon.
Can we go ahead?
My theory now is because the Grand Inquisitor at the end says that revenge will do a lot for your will to live. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking that surviving being stabbed through the gut is something that only dark side users can survive. That's
I was about to
just a
say,
thought.
though, can we just talk about the fact that all of a sudden Star Wars is like a Marvel comic book? No one's ever really dead. No one is ever really
Luke
dead.
Skywalker says.
We thought Boba Fett was dead.
one's ever really
we
gone.
saved him. He's fine.
I am
We thought,
waiting for my boy Ben to show back up.
but we thought the Marshal was gone. But no, the back to tank at the end of Boba Fett, and we thought that the Grand Inquisitor was gone. Nah, he comes back. Well, Reva's certainly dead. Nah, she's there too. I mean, it's like no one seems to die anymore. Everything seems to be.
I never thought that the Marshal was dead. He only got shot in the shoulder.
Sorry, Left 4 Dead in the streets, and they went to fight in his name. So I just assume that at that point he was the martyr for that situation. But again, there are a lot of characters that seemingly are dead, and then they come back to life. Like the Gamorrean guards they pushed off in Boba Fett. Did they come back? I feel like they're probably gone.
I hope.
There was probably a roast that night, a nice pork roast to celebrate the victory.
Too soon.
But I mean, with that is the other side of this. When you're doing these prequel, midquel things, and this is one of the kind of criticisms of the show that I do agree with, that there were very little stakes in the show because we know he has to live. He has to rescue Leia. He can't kill Vader at the end. Reva and a couple of the Path characters were the only ones we could worry about, and they weren't, honestly, other than Reva, maybe not developed enough to even care that much.
All right, let me back up and ask you a question exactly about that. Tala. She has this like grand sacrifice death scene. Did she earn that? Because I don't feel like she earned that. I feel like we didn't get to know her enough for her to earn that grand hero death scene. Obviously, she gave herself up to save, to save everybody, and she had the thermal detonator and she let it blow up and all that, but it didn't seem like, I was like, we kind of hardly got to know her. What do you
Here,
think? Oh, you got an opinion. Let's have it.
here's where my head was at with that is they made it like it was this big death sacrifice, and little Leia says, "Where's Tala?" And when she finds out that Tala's dead, she doesn't cry, she doesn't get upset, and I think that that is laying the groundwork for when she sees Ben die, she doesn't get that upset, and instead she comforts Luke, and also when she sees her entire planet get blown up, she doesn't cry. She's a big tough girl, and she holds her chin up.
But yet she gets Tala's holster, and it means the world to her, right? I mean, I don't know. It seems a little bit
I
weird.
think she just thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
And it was a gift from Ben, not necessarily that it was Tala's.
What do you got,
You
Ron?
know.
I was gonna say, not caring about your friends dying around you seems to be a family trait. Because look at the first, Luke, his aunt and uncle dead, just moves on. He finds a planet to destroy, and then Ben, who he barely knows, is the one he breaks down about in A New Hope.
Yeah.
His best friend gets blown up beside him. He's just like, well, I mean, at that point you got to carry on. You're in the middle of the battle, but like, the only one he really seemed to care about was the man he barely knew in that movie.
Yeah. Well, you know what, and like so many other things in Star Wars, a lot of times I start to become more attached to the droids than I do
Yes.
the actual like people. I mean, the
That is
droids,
so sad.
yeah, the droids start to matter to me more, like when IG-11, like in the Mandalorian, sacrifices himself, and just and this situation here. I mean, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but it's almost like kind of like people care more about their pets sometimes than their fellow man. It's the same thing with this. It's like, but the droid, yeah, Tala's dead, but the droid.
Side note, when you saw Taika Waititi standing next to Natalie Portman in all of the Thor Love and Thunder stuff, did anyone else secretly hope for a Padme IG-11 spin-off
Yeah,
where they just go on adventures?
that's the only thing people were thinking at that point. You absolutely nailed it. Thanks, Desi, for bringing that to our attention. So let's go back though to the series has progressed again. For the first two episodes, we're basically learning, things we already knew. We're learning that, where Luke is, and that Ben's watching over him, and that Bale's watching over Leia, and the hijinks she's getting into, and then Ben's going to have to go and find her, and then at the very end of the episode 2 is the reveal that Anakin is still alive, which we knew, obviously, but Ben didn't know that at this point. And that's something that didn't occur to me at first, that Ben wouldn't know that. Because it feels like, okay, we all already know that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker, and et cetera, et cetera. But it's really was, I think, an interesting scene to see that expression on Ben's face when he realizes that his friend isn't really dead, which becomes this theme of, is Anakin dead or is he not dead? Because even if he is still alive, he's not Anakin anymore, and then my friend is truly dead. I feel like he's said that line like 18 times. Like, I feel like he said it to Anakin as he was fighting him for the last time. So I don't know. But anyway, so as this is progressing, they find themselves with the path and the idea that they're with these Jedi sympathizers, and they're going to be taken care of. And then once Darth Vader comes down, he's super OP. Like, he is super overpowered compared to what we know about Darth Vader. It feels like he's got like a Thanos snap kind of power in this. The way in that one scene he just grabs that entire ship transport and just rips it to shreds was one of the coolest things that I saw in this whole thing, but it made me question everything about the Force.
Why?
Well,
You've seen Yoda lift ships before.
not like this. Usually the Yoda thing is him going, "Arr," and it's slowly coming back. This was him going, whoop, bam, and it's just break it apart, and it's gone. And yet at the same time, he couldn't sense that Obi-Wan wasn't dead in that hole.
He probably
I
left
think,
him for dead the same way that he felt like
yeah.
Obi-Wan left him for dead.
But then across the universe, Ben can sense that Luke is in trouble. You see what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, and then, like, Reva can't sense that Owen has a gun on her. But
I don't think he senses that Luke is in trouble. I thought that it was
No,
he
he,
realized.
he does. He
Like,
realizes he's in trouble, and then he goes, Luke, and then he just jets off. Go.
I like that they've been doing more. The Jedi's have slightly different power sets, and I think that came in a little bit more on like some of the cartoons and some of the like books and comics where certain Jedi are better at certain things. Like Anakin's supposed to be OP, and I think that's one of the things with the ship pulling down. And we saw it in, we saw Rey do something similar in Rise of Skywalker, and then there's in one of the Force Unleashed, whatever his name is, pulls a Star Destroyer out of orbit. In one of the What If versions of the comics, Yoda pulls the Death Star out and crashes it onto the Imperial Palace in Coruscant, I think. So there's definitely precedent for that.
Okay. Well, again, it just and part of it I do get. Part of it is like Darth Vader is faster, so that makes sense because theoretically he's younger. Even though a lot of his parts are robotic, theoretically he's younger, so he should
well,
be faster, right?
been
Or
a
no?
lot younger because it just got those parts just a few years ago. So he's spry. That's why he's so fast.
They're fresh.
But
Uh,
maybe something happened to all of his parts between then and A New Hope because he seems way slower by the time A New Hope comes
I
around.
I think there's some secondary canon comics about how the Emperor is kind of refusing to give him upgrades and stuff like that, and kind of keeps force lightning him as punishment and things like that. So it's kind of
Mm,
the Emperor's trying to keep him from becoming more powerful and things like
right,
and
because he
just
doesn't
keep
want
him in
him to
his
take
place.
over. Right, that makes sense.
well, I mean, as much as I like new content, the idea of Darth Vader just coming in here and grabbing this ship and just like ripping it apart is kind of amazing to see. Like,
Yeah,
I'm just going to pull it down and no big deal. But you can see it
I thought it was
struggling
super
more than
cool.
I've seen like other things happen. So it's really kind of a quick thing, and then him just ripping it apart. Anyway, so difference of opinion. You think that it all works in canon, Ron?
I think it does fit into some of the secondary canon, and I did have my issues with what was going to happen in the show. I really was hoping that they played a cat and mouse and never actually met in this. But then you go back and you actually listen to the actual dialogue in A New Hope, and it doesn't break any of that. You have to interpret it differently, but from a certain point of view, has been the whole Anakin Vader Obi-Wan story since the beginning. So
Yeah.
it didn't violate anything; it just played with it.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Desi. The scenes where they flash back and we get to actually see Hayden Christensen be Anakin again. Did you appreciate seeing these? Did you think these were a little forced, especially since he's starting to show a little bit more age than he had? Obviously he's older as an actor now, still playing the
Right.
same that he was before. Did you appreciate seeing those scenes? Did you love those scenes, or did you
I
go, good?
I loved the scenes. I did think that they should have done a better job at de-aging Hayden Christensen. He looked a little old. I mean, look what they were able to do with Luke Skywalker. Um, Look what they were able to do with not Jeff Bridges, Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, they have the de-aging technology. Use it, or just have Hayden get some Botox before he goes and plays this character again. Um, but more than the wrinkles didn't bother me that much. I mean, I've got some wrinkles, I get it. The deeper voice is what got me. The fact that it sounded like he had gone through puberty, and his voice seems much deeper now than it did during the prequels. That took me out of it more than the wrinkles.
Okay. How about you,
Yeah,
Ron?
I saw the voice thing too. I was actually watching an interview with him, and and I'm like, that he really doesn't sound the same at all. The, but I think the de aging, yeah, it's not their best work on that. I don't even know if they really did too much de
I
aging
don't think
on
they
him.
did.
I think they just let him play it out, which he wasn't. It wasn't so bad, but I mean, there is the difference between being 20 when that was supposed to be set for him, and 40. So even if
Right.
he is in good shape,
Yeah, you know what? I mean, it was neat that they included him in it again, and yet at the same time, most of his scenes are in the Darth Vader suit and James Earl Jones' voice. It was a very David Prowse kind of a thing for him, but he is able to move very
But
quickly,
I
and
loved it when they had both of their voices at the same time.
that was
yeah,
good.
that was cool.
That was super cool.
So let's talk about that moment for a second. So you're talking about the moment where we have this showdown between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader on the planet, and in the fight, Obi-Wan, first of all, he says to him, "Your strength is returning." So I guess what we're learning from that is that because he has hidden the Force for so long, just like Luke did, so that he's not drawing attention to himself, now he doesn't have the strength that he had in the Force before. And so as he's having to use it to rescue Leia, to fight Darth, he's getting these powers back and that strength back, which I thought was interesting. That he's still young, so he should still have the power.
Ha-
But go ahead.
Have you ever seen Rocky Balboa? Where it's like Rocky is much older and he hasn't been training, but he wants to be in another fight. You got to work up to it. Even though he was the best ever back in his day, by the time Rocky Balboa happens, a lot of time has passed and he hasn't been training. So I think that's the same for Obi-Wan, is that he just needed to get back into that rhythm before he could stand up to Darth Vader truly.
Yeah. No,
And it was also emotionally, he didn't want to use it until that point. He was just playing defense and trying to get out of there and get back to his little hermitage. And that moment when he decides to go face Vader, that's when things turn, and he just embraces it and just decides, I'm going to use it again. Because I mean, don't forget. I mean, these were two of the most powerful Jedi of the Republic. So
Hmm.
like there's a reason why they were the generals and they were the survivors of everything.
yeah.
Although Anakin was never granted the rank of master.
True. I did like the part where he's standing over the hole after he throws Obi-Wan in it, and he calls him Master again. I think that is a neat little moment. But when he finally, this is the other part, is when he finally slices him. The fact that he just cleanly slices him here across the helmet of all places, so that now we have that Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor moment. Part of me is like, really? And then the other part is like, this is really cool. Honestly, I was just like you were talking about the voice matching. It was really cool because he looks up, and it was honestly, I think maybe you guys call me on this, maybe the best acting that Hayden Christensen has done
Yes.
in Star Wars or in general. But like that face under the helmet, I thought was pretty amazing.
I
I
think
don't
Hayden
think he's
Christensen is actually a good actor, and I think that he got a bad rap because he got terrible lines to use. It had nothing to do with him as an actor. It had to do with the writing and the
and the
lines he was
direction.
given. And
Yeah.
I think the direction was also, to try to follow the James Earl Jones cadence of talking, which, I'm sorry, if you're not James Earl Jones and you talk like that, it's not going to sound the same.
Well, Lucas is also notorious for his direction of just read the lines and get it out there. Like that was one of the things he's supposedly known for. And I think people dump on him for the prequels, but Natalie Portman and Sam Jackson are kind of stilted in those, and they're great actors. So it's not him. Like, and there's some quiet, non-speaking moments in the prequels I really like when it's in episode 2 where he and Padme are just, it's the sand scene where they're talking and overlooking the balcony, and he reaches out and he grabs her hand for a second, and then they're talking and everything's fine, and then all of a sudden she just changes her mind and pulls her hand away. He just gives this look of like, what just happened? Like, and it's a perfect, like, this is what an 18-year-old boy would react like in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are those moments where he does show he can act when he got direction to, and not just, let's get these lines and I'll CG in the rest.
So let me challenge you to this about this scene again. And again, great scene. It's what we all wanted, right? Is another showdown between these two. And part of me is thinking ahead to the New Hope showdown. And, like, how does this, retcon that? I think it still fits. It's great because that horrible line that Darth Vader says in A New Hope where he goes, "A presence I haven't felt since," and then walks away, and it's just,
This is the sense.
So this is it. And so the battle that they're having here, while it's epic, I would, hot take, contend, is not necessary.
I kind of wanted Darth Vader to win. Like, that was kind of my thoughts, is that Darth Vader should have won, left Obi-Wan for dead, and thought, okay, he's dead now. The same way that Obi-Wan left Anakin for dead and then went away and thought he was dead, and then 10 years later found out, oh my god, he's alive again, and then they have a show-off. That's kind of what I was hoping, was that Darth Vader was going to think he won and then fly off, and then 10 years later or 9 years later have a show-off again.
To that point, to exactly your point, I'll get to you in a second, Ron, but to exactly your point, that's what I expected would have been better, is if he had left him in the hole, because he didn't seem to think, oh, he's still alive down there. If he had left him in that hole, and rather than, and this was Obi-Wan's hero moment, right, where he flashes all of the images of Luke and Leia and how he's got to be there to save them, and he drives himself out of the hole, and it's his hero moment, and then he fights him and he wins, and that's great. But if he had stayed in the hole, Darth Vader still keeps a cool factor, right? Because that's a thing, is that, like Kylo Ren has the mask on, and when he becomes Ben Solo, yes, he's your boyfriend, but it's a cool factor difference when he's got the helmet on, when he doesn't. And so when they're doing that with Darth Vader, we get to see Darth Vader, this guy that we were almost afraid of as a kid, get weakened very quickly in this scene and almost left as just like trash. And I almost would think you could have left Darth Vader's reputation intact, and it would have spoken more to the story that Obi-Wan stayed where he was and now was no longer searched for because Darth Vader thought he was dead, rather than having to have the scene with the Emperor where the Emperor basically just like drags Darth Vader for like wanting to be focused on Obi-Wan. But Ron, what are your thoughts?
Well, a couple things with that would be more inconsistent, what I think, with even more retconning of A New Hope, with the "when I left you, I was but the learner." Like, Obi-Wan still schooled him in the last encounter, and that's the impression that you have to get from that line to me. And once again, I keep bringing in the secondary canon, but Palpatine always never considered Obi-Wan a threat for some reason. He just kind of always dismissed him. He always focused on Windu and Anakin and Yoda, but like there's something in the books and comics where he just never wanted to focus on Obi-Wan, so that was part of, I think, where that scene where the show kept ending like it was Lord of the Rings. Like, the problem with it had its climax and then it just tailed off a few times, which would have been, I think, if it was a movie, would have been like almost credit tags, but we kept seeing ending after ending. Like, I don't think Reva's story on Tatooine was necessary. I think that the Vader tag would have been like just, him dismissing it would have been a good place to end it. But then we have to have that ridiculous. I mean, it's fitting and it doesn't violate anything, but that moment between Obi-Wan and Leia at the end is kind of like, really? And especially coming after, if the Vader scene had come after that, I think it would have worked better.
It's so funny that you said that, because I made this note. there's about 15 minutes of wrap up / goodbyes. It's him saying goodbye, Darth, right? And there is a resolution there for him that he feels like he was responsible for Anakin, and now in that moment he truly feels like he can't save him and that it's not his fault and he's going to move on. But he says goodbye, Darth, which is weird because it really should have been Vader, because there's Darth Sidious and Darth.
He calls him Darth in A New Hope.
Okay, all right. Well, just so you don't continue, Desi, I think you're on mute. But then he also, then there's like that long goodbye to Reva. Like he flashes across, the galaxy to be able to be there and have that goodbye with Reva, and then he says goodbye to Leia and the Organas, and then he goes goodbye to his home, and then he says goodbye to Owen, which then he gets to say goodbye to Luke, or really hello there.
No,
which
he
we
gets
can
to say hello.
Right, yeah, exactly. And then he gets to say hello to Qui-Gon, but to your point, Ron, that's a lot. That's 16, 17 minutes of wrap up. And so that's a thing that before we go any further, that like when I'm watching a lot of these Disney Plus shows, I feel like they leave a ton of stuff unanswered by the second to the last episode. That on the last episode, they have to shove it all in. And when it was, say, WandaVision or something like that, which I don't think was as bad, with those, I felt like, okay, this was a COVID thing. Like they couldn't have shot anymore. They had to wrap it up, and that's why they have to shove so much in. But it really feels like that last episode shoves in so much stuff. And it's the same with Moon Knight. Like with Moon Knight, the episode before the last one, I thought, how could they possibly wrap all this up in one episode? And I see you nodding your head. Do you agree, Desi?
Yeah, I mean, I also felt like it was a lot of goodbyes in Obi-Wan, or hello there's. It did seem like the ending went much longer than it needed to. I'm with Ron. I didn't think that we needed that long goodbye for Reva. If she had died with Vader stabbing her, I would have been fine if that was her ending. I didn't need a redemption arc out of her. I mean, I was glad that we got to see some little Luke, even though it wasn't much. But I was slightly disappointed, I guess, at first that we were only going to get little Leia. I kind of wanted more little Luke, so having a little bit of him made me happy to see that. And the hello there, I have to say, is probably my favorite part of the entire series.
Well, I know it is. That's your favorite line that he says all the time. And, again, what I've read in trades is that he doesn't like saying it.
I
So
know,
the fact
so I
that it
didn't think it was
was,
going to happen at all.
yeah, the fact that it was in there did take me by surprise. And I thought, perfectly placed. They couldn't have fixed a better place for that. And I didn't expect it until he said it. Didn't even expect it. It was the whole, want to meet him? Like, Owen going on. And I'm just like, okay, yep, there he is.
I kept expecting it at the beginning of the show. Like when he met Leia, I was like, oh, he's going to say it. And then he didn't say it. And then there was a time where Leia was talking to the guy who was driving the truck. And he's like, why don't you say hello? And then Obi-Wan says, hello. And I was like, no, you could have just added in the one more word. And then after that, I was like, well, I know Ewan McGregor doesn't like saying it. He's probably just never going to say it. And I'm just going to have to live with that. But when he said it, I like got up out of my chair and started cheering. I was ridiculously over happy for that.
Yep, I got you. Let me ask you this. Beru, badass.
Okay, I saw a meme of it's like Uncle Owen comes in and tells Beru, Luke just saw the two stormtroopers' bodies and left. And Beru says, guess it's time we can be empty nesters now. So those two burnt up bodies were not actually Owen and Beru. They were the stormtroopers who were coming after Owen and Beru, and they wound up winning.
Well, I mean,
that is canon in my head now.
she takes on the protective mother role of not in my house and not my boy, right? So she's like, you know what, Owen, shut your face and grab this gun because it's go time. So I mean, I think that was a pretty neat side to see. I don't think that up until that point they had really worked that character, whether it be in the trilogy or here. I don't feel like we had seen that yet, and I feel like that was really cool that we got to see that from her. The next thing though is Roken. So Roken has a line where he says, "I'm just getting started." Ron, what does that mean?
I actually think he and possibly Riva are going to show up in Andor, in Andor.
Okay.
I think they're going to be something to do with whatever Rebel alliance he's working for. Or I think someone said in the chat, Riva could show up in the Fallen Order sequel that's coming out next year on the games. But I think he's going to be someone in the early alliance that we see in. I think the Andor show is going to have to play off somebody else we know other than him.
Yeah, no, that's true. But I just thought I mean, we've got a big time actor playing this character that I didn't know from any other canon, and then him saying, "I'm just getting started," seemed like a very important line from him. So, also, there was a line where Luke, I guess they're talking to Luke about, making sure that, like, I guess they've told him the story that Sand People are coming, and then that's why he's got to run and hide. And he says, "I'm not afraid," and I'm like, Luke said that line. That's cool. That's a thing that he says later. That's kind of awesome, and it's consistent with being a Jedi. So there you go. That's kind of neat. Nobody else?
So
That one didn't stick out.
there's a lot of those callback lines. And somebody actually made a point. I was watching somebody's review, and they're talking about like people are making callback lines to scenes they weren't in, or the things other characters said that they weren't around. And I know that's a little bit of it, but like I understand that, and I think they're relying sometimes a little too heavy on those little nostalgia moments. Like, I think the hello there was great, but I think we don't need to have. There's like 3 or 4 lines per episode that are callbacks to something else, and I think that's going a little too far into fan service.
All right, so
Like when he said, "I will do what I must," at the beginning of their fight.
yeah.
The one thing that I was expecting that didn't happen was when Darth Vader was burying him with rocks. I was hoping he would say, "Who has the high ground now?" But
Yeah.
that was just wishful thinking, I guess.
Okay. Well, you know what? These series have that, right? So speaking of wishful thinking, what happens next? So this isn't an ongoing series. We were told this is a limited series. This is all we're going to see of this. But obviously we can spin off of this. So, Ron, your feeling is that we're going to see a lot of these characters, or maybe a couple of these characters, show up in Andor. Obviously, Riva was a big deal, and they went to a lot of trouble to curate her character and to show that she was still alive and to say that she's had her redemption arc. Could it be the further adventures of Riva? I mean, I jotted down, could we see the further adventures of Riva? Could we see an Inquisitor's show? Could we see a Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson buddy show? I would be up for that, like an odd couple, Obi-Wan, pick up your clothes, or like a Raising Luke. I mean, all of these things seem to be
I would love
possibilities.
that.
And Ron, you looked excited.
I think we're actually going to see more of younger Leia, because there's some. I think Claudia Gray wrote an excellent book on kind of younger teenage Leia, and I think that's part of the reason why they cast her younger than she was supposed to be, because I think the actress was like 8 or 9, and you don't usually cast the other way when you're casting kids, like a couple years older. So I think they have the intention of using this girl again in the future in something. At least they wanted to leave themselves the option for it.
Yep. Okay.
I would be all in more young Leia. I also think it would be cool to just have a spin-off. I know that people are like, "Oh, we get so much Darth Vader." Is there too much Darth Vader? I would love to see more of Hayden Christensen, just like going and being a badass around the galaxy. I think that would be cool to see it from his point of view. From a certain point of view, the people who are rebelling are the evil ones.
Okay. From a certain point of view. Is that
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, and then the final thing is we get to see, you know, the Qui-Gon thing turn around, and I was almost for half a second before he turned around going to go, are they just going to show his back and not show Liam Neeson's face? Because I was like, if you're going to do that, like, you know, why would you do that? But you know, in these final scenes, we get to see Jimmy Smits again. We get to see, you know, we get to see the Emperor. We get to see Qui-Gon. We get to see all of these characters come back, and it's kind of neat to me that we get to see that, and it's, you know, it's a lot of fun. So with all that said, was there anything missing? And Desi's thinking. So Ron, was there anything missing? And we'll get, you know, I just, that you would have liked to have seen in this series. Not that you want to see later, but that you would have liked to have seen in this series, or something they did that you didn't care for.
I think it was nice and self-contained. I would have liked to have seen something other than every episode be rescue, reset, which happened for, 4 episodes in a row? Where they had to rescue from one planet and just move on to the next planet. I think that's a format I would like to not see used. And I kind of think that goes to what we were saying earlier about, like, how these shows, the writing is flowing between episode to episode feels a little weird. Like the timing of things. And it's not just, you know, the Disney Plus or the Star Wars shows. It's like, I think in these kind of mini-series, streaming series formats, I think it's a new format for a lot of writers, and they're working with it. Because, like, look at the inconsistency in the episodes of Stranger Things that just happened. Like, you know, you end up with 2.5-hour finales because I think people don't know how to break things up and things.
Yeah, I actually didn't see Stranger Things yet, so please don't spoil anything. I've been too busy trying to watch Umbrella Academy and Ms. Marvel, and there's a lot of and the Only Murders in the Building is returned. So right now there seems to be a lot of content all of a sudden that I'm falling way behind on. So I definitely want to see that. And plus, I still haven't seen any of Bluey, Ron. So since you've recommended it, you know, that was kind of a thing. Anyway, so Desi, same question. Anything that you think was missing from this one that they didn't do that you wish they had?
No, I don't think so. I'm not like one of those internet trolls, people who just say negative stuff to get clicks. I thought it was great, and you know, I guess my biggest complaint is just that I think they should have done a better job at de-aging Hayden Christensen.
Like they did Jeff Bridges in Tron. Exactly. No, I agree.
Maybe he didn't want to. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird that it came out that way. And another person I think mentioned something I kind of agree with is, like, is there a limit to, like, some of these things, like, scenes that were obviously filmed on the volume, like, is there a limit to how many actors you can get on there? Because sometimes, like they said, like, it feels like there should have been more troopers here or something like that. And I could see that being an issue with, like, the, you know, because the volume that virtual space that they film on could be a little limiting, and I'm happy to see that they're not using it for everything going forth. I think they said Andor is not going to use it, so it'll be interesting to see how they do some other things. But I think they've been doing a good job with a lot of these things. I just think they need to work on the pacing between some of the episodes of the thing more than anything would be my biggest comment on any of it.
Yeah, I always thought that, like, 10 episodes was the right amount of episodes for any kind of a streaming show. Like, that felt right. I've seen 8, I've seen 13, I've seen, you know, but 10 feels right. And yet we've fallen short of that. And again, I don't know if it was because of COVID that we started shortening seasons to 5, 6 8, 7, around that many episodes. But I really feel like 10 is the right amount of space to put out a show, and they're not doing 10 on most of these, the Marvel ones, the Star Wars ones. To your point,
it would have felt prolonged.
You think?
What?
Like, if it had gone 10 episodes, you don't think it would have felt like it just dragged on too long?
Well, I mean, since Ron was talking about the whole rescue reset, which feels a lot like the first season of 24, by the way, that it could have been stretched out a little bit more. The episodes could have been a little bit shorter. I don't know. I feel like it was started, especially because they dropped 2 episodes to start. It started and then it was over.
And
it would have been really.
Go ahead.
Go ahead,
I was just going to say it would have been really, really helpful if Qui-Gon had shown up earlier, because he is fantastic at getting kidnapped girls back.
Boo. Ron, what are you going to say?
I was trying to figure out how to make the Taken joke, but...
Are you serious? You guys, come on. Come on, people. Come on, focus up. Focus up.
I think, something about... I don't know how it is. They still seem... with this format, they're still... not sure how to write. You're not tied into a 13 season order or a back 9 season order or 22, 26 season order. Don't constrain yourself with what you want to tell, but you still have to constrain yourself with telling at least a consistent piece of a story per episode. And I think they focus too much on that with the, everything happens on this one planet, we get off, we get another problem on the next planet. And I think they're trying to break off of one, restraint in writing and getting caught in another, and it's tough. I mean, you have to, you've done these things, you've learned these things, you've watched these things, and moving on to these new kinds of formats, it's going to be a problem. As I said, I'm not trying to spoil Stranger Things, but that last episode was 2.5 hours, and they could have. Could they have edited that into others? Or, I like that they didn't, work their story into, these 45-minute elements and break it up that way. But on the other hand, you could edit yourself a little bit at a certain point.
Right.
And do things. And I think this has got the same issues at points.
By the way, Dawn says Desi has taken it too far with a capital T on taken. So, buying into the whole thing. So, thanks a lot, Dawn, for that. I feel like y'all compared notes before the show, but that's fine.
We need a series with Qui-Gon and Han Solo, so we have Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson with their families both get kidnapped.
Get off my plane!
Oh my gosh!
So I feel like the runaway star of this series. Now Moses says Reva was a big, huge deal, guaranteed. But I think the star of this one kind of ended up being Little Leia, right? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely stole the show.
Perfect.
Yeah, I love that she puts on the gloves that she forced Obi-Wan to get for her. But also, I think it's funny that in the scene where we first think we are introduced to her, we have a whole team of people dressing her, and now in this scene, she's doing it herself. Which it wasn't her in the first place anyway. But yeah, I think that was really neat, and I love both her parents. Both her parents are great. I hate that they're going to die early. But when you see Mom come up and she's like, "Is that a holster?" And you're like, "Uh-oh." And then she's like, "I love it." It's like, "Yay, Mom! You're the cool mom. That's great." I mean, I guess.
I read their death. It's very sad.
Oh.
But it's still nice because they know that Leia is off planet.
Well, and that's one we didn't mention. As I said, Raising Luke, there could be a spinoff with the Organas and something that happens on Alderaan with little Leia, because she is so good in this role. And again, compared to other Star Wars actors, which again could be the George Lucas thing, the directing, could be the writing, could be whatever, but she is definitely by far the best child actor that I've seen, I think, in any of the Star Wars movies, except for maybe Grogu. He's a pretty good guy. But the rest of them, I think, whether it's writing or whatever, we can argue that at another time. But I love all of that. Maybe we have further adventures of Lola, kind of like the Baymax thing where Lola goes and helps other people across Alderaan. And no, nobody? Okay, cool.
I was kind of hoping when we saw Order 66 to get a glimpse of Grogu being rescued in the background.
Yeah.
There's a comic for that too, I think.
Okay.
I was thinking though with the Lola thing is if Lucas was still in charge, we'd be getting another cut of A New Hope with Lola flying behind her on the blockade runner, and we'll see Lola there like CG'd in and like just to add her somehow.
Yeah. All right, so I want to wrap this up, but one of the things I want to ask you guys first and ask each of you before we get into the final thoughts is I want to ask you guys, as far as this series is concerned, like I have thoughts, but as far as the series is concerned, we only really have Mandalorian to compare it to because Book of Boba Fett is really Mandalorian season 3.5 or 2.5, right? So we really only have Mandalorian to compare it to. Compared to Mandalorian, how did you like, which one do you like better in this one, Desi?
We also have 2 seasons, or 2.5 seasons of Mandalorian,
Fair.
so we get more out of that.
But this one
I
seemed like
guess-
a continuation with new content, or with existing content that we already had, where
Right.
the Mandalorian feels like, even though we may
It's
see
very-
Cad Bane, it's new content.
It's very hard for me to compare because I already loved these characters, and I'm just so happy and excited to get to see more of them.
Yeah. Okay.
But on the other hand, I've bought like every Grogu toy that exists. So
That's okay. You can be a Grogu stan and not necessarily prefer that one. What about you, Ron?
I mean, I have to say Mandalorian because it is a unique sort of like, if this didn't exist, we didn't lose anything. Like,
right.
I mean, we meet Obi-Wan at a different place than he was at the end of Episode 3, and we see him get back to where we already knew him at. So the character arc in this for him was filling in a gap that wasn't a gap until they made it a gap. Like,
There was
because we
kind
know-
of a gap where he didn't know that Vader was Anakin, so they did kind of need to explain that.
Well, there's a thing, like, and I think they've been very inconsistent with that, with between Rebels and this is, who knows Vader exists? Like people don't know Vader exists. People don't know Vader's Anakin. Like, it's been a very inconsistent thing in a lot of material, and I think they just play it for however the story needs to work, which is fine. But where we left Obi-Wan and to where we find Obi-Wan, he wasn't as different of a person as he was at the beginning of this. And I mean, we've also seen him in Rebels, where he is still at the top of his game, which is about not quite halfway between this and A New Hope. It's, I think, 7 years from this, 2 years before A New Hope, whatever, is that scene we see him where he just takes down Maul in like a snap. And I think when we were watching this, and we know that he's still that capable, it left us wondering what happened here at the beginning. And the whole arc was just to get him back to a point where we left him. So I feel it was unnecessary. That's why I'll go with Mandalorian. I enjoyed this, and I think it worked, but it was unnecessary. It was just because everybody wanted to see him play more Obi-Wan, and I'm happy with that.
Neko says, I don't think that Kenobi was as strong as Mando, even if you just take season 1 of Mando. And Dawn says, I have issues with teeth, so Cad Bane freaks me out. So there's a little bit of content there. Go ahead.
If Ewan McGregor had never said hello there, I would have said Mando all day. But I just have such a special place in my heart for that little hello there. I don't know if I can't compare them.
That's
can't
fine.
say one is better than the other.
Well, we get them both, so that's a good thing. It'll be interesting to see how Cassian or how Andor plays into this whole thing too when that one comes out. And then we've got Ahsoka, and we've got a lot more content coming. And I think at one point when they were in the theaters, some people said we've overstretched with Star Wars. We had the trilogy, and then we had Han Solo, and we had Rogue One, and that we were overstretching. There was too much content, and we've proven with Marvel that's not necessarily the case if it's good content. And while I like those movies, I don't know that the masses did. Like, you and I have talked about Solo and what a movie, what you feel like about
I love
Solo, and then Rogue One. A lot of people say is their favorite, but there was this thought that there was too much or that they were going in the wrong direction. Now I feel like whether it's Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni getting together or whether they're just on track now, I feel like all of it is going in the right direction now. So it'll be exciting, I think, as a Star Wars fan, to see more content moving forward. But like I said, I want a reset moment. I want a week where I just get to go and watch it all in order and just like absorb it in order rather than going, oh yeah, that was from the Clone Wars, but before, but not Bad Batch, but then not Rebels, but then also, and so it's just, there's a lot.
Bad Batch too.
Yeah, there's a lot of, and there's Bad Batch season 2.
I think you need more than a week.
Yeah, I know.
Like a month.
Well, just Clone Wars is what's going to do it, I think, is that's going to be the problem. And then the Cal Kestis series, Neko is saying that, there's rumor that
then
that's
going to... Then are you going to play all the games in the middle
Got to play all the
too?
games. Got to play all the games, exactly. Shadows of the Empire was my game. N64. Look it up.
I have the VR set where I get to use the lightsaber.
Oh, the Oculus?
Yeah.
And Vader Immortal or the stories from Black Spire?
We got Vader Immortal. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, all that stuff looks amazing. And again, it's all great content. And I love the fact that at some point they've just made it all the same thing with Marvel. Like Marvel was all over the place when Fox was doing their thing and Sony was doing their thing. And then, they step in with the MCU and they make it all fit together. That I think is magical. I think DC is probably trying to still struggle with how that works. But with Star Wars, they finally seem like they have it on track, and I'm excited for what's to come. So
and I think all the Mando era stuff is leading to something. I think Mando, Boba Fett, Ahsoka. I think we're going to see all that lead to the Siege of Mandalore, and I think we needed to build something, and we need that gap filled in more than we need the Empire era gap. We need the New Republic / First Order gap filled in because they just didn't bother explaining anything about where there's some books that kind of explain how the First Order shows up, but it was inconsistent, and then that kind of looks like it got overridden by some of the Rise of Skywalker stuff. It's just there's a lot to miss up, and I think we need that era, and I think Mando can do that if they bring back, because it's supposed to be the search for Ezra, right? I think is kind of what everybody's thinking.
Yeah.
If we see that and they bring back Thrawn as well, we could actually have a good era of shows where we don't know everything that's going to happen immediately after that.
Right. Yeah, that'll be exciting. Desi, is this you when you're walking around the house? You're just wearing your Oculus and doing the Vader Immortal thing?
Pumping into things.
Yeah, great. Okay, so thank you guys for watching tonight. We appreciate you. Thank you for being in here. All of our WIGS members. If you don't know about our WIGS, we love our WIGS members. The World WDWNT Interglobe Society. If you need more information on that, go to patreon.com/WDWNT. Don't forget that tomorrow night is the debut of News Tonight on WDWNT TV. You can get there easily, wdwnt.tv, anytime you want. We have, again, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Deep in the Plus, Disney Entertainment News Today, Boxed In, and Park Center, now News Tonight will be on this channel. So very exciting time for us on this, and thank you guys for being subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and then again, tune in tomorrow night, and it's the beginning of the 15th anniversary for WDWNT. All weekend long there's going to be 15th anniversary celebrations, and I know Desi will be down in Orlando celebrating some of that too. So again, please like this one. We appreciate it. Ron's really, he watches the likes, guys. So if you can just make sure to give him that feedback, he really needs that. That's going to be exciting. Coming up on Deep in the Plus, I want to also let you guys know that next week, Patrick, who's in the chat, thank you, Patrick, for being in the chat. Patrick will be here, and we're going to be talking about Teen Beach Movie because he chose it, so we'll find out about why. And then the week after that, we're going to be back here with these folks and another guest to do Big Hero 6 on the 20th. And then after that, Allison will return, and we're going to be doing Anastasia. So a lot of fun movies coming up, and I hope you guys will come back and join us each week. Wednesday nights on Deep in the Plus. So thank you guys for doing that. Now is the big time. I feel like everybody knows what you guys are going to say, but it's important that we do this. It's part of the show. It's tradition. And I'm going to start with Desi on this one, and then I'll go to Ron, but it's important. Everybody's waiting. Dawn gave a super chat, for gosh sakes, to you, Desi, and we need to know, would you put your reputation on the line, and would you recommend this show?
Yes, I would. Absolutely. I get that it's not perfect. There are some elements that probably could have been better, but it's just fun. And if you are a prequel stan like I am, then you're going to love it. And even if you're not a prequel stan and you just like the original trilogy, there is still stuff in there for you too. So absolutely, I would recommend if you're only going to watch one piece of content that is between the prequels and the original trilogy, I might recommend Obi-Wan before I say that you should watch Rebels, because Rebels are not Rebels. Clone Wars is just a lot of time to take up. So this is fun, and it doesn't take up 3 months of your life to watch.
Fair enough. Ron?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. As I said, I don't think it was the thing I thought I needed, but I like it, and I like that it didn't actually really contradict anything we know. So I got to give it 2 lightsabers up.
Wow, 2 lightsabers up. That's fantastic. And I would say the same. Like, it wasn't content that I thought I needed, but I'm glad that I got to see it. I had a lot of excitement moments when I got to see, oh my gosh, there's Obi-Wan, and his big reveal, and getting to see Bail, and getting to see the Emperor, and getting to see all of these characters, and even Darth Vader was very cool to be able to see him, and James Earl Jones continuing his journey as Darth Vader. A lot of it was really cool to see. I'm excited about this one. I'm excited to see what's next for Star Wars. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. So let us know in the comments below what you guys think.
Okay, I'm sorry. The chat is yelling at me. I don't mean that this show is better than the Clone Wars. I'm saying if I'm going to recommend it to somebody who's just a casual fan and isn't obsessed with Star Wars, then I would recommend watching this before you take the time and effort to watch the Clone Wars.
Dawn may be regretting backing you early on in this one now. I mean,
I'm sorry, I take back everything I said.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this show. Thank you guys for watching the show. We have a good time doing this. We hope you do too, and we will see you again next time. Have a great week. And also, don't forget to watch Disney Entertainment News Today. It's up on this channel right now. Good time to go watch it right now. Have a good one.